Hello and welcome to the first episode of 2023 of Something Up My Sleeve, where we interview world-class magicians and ask them the question, what is up your sleeve? What do you bring to the table? What makes you you? And what do you have to offer the world of magic? We have amazing guests tonight. I'm so excited to do this. And I'm so thankful that the International Brotherhood of Magicians has given me this opportunity. I can't believe that we actually did 12 episodes last year. We were on episode 12 in December. I don't know how that worked out so well. And then I decided to call this season 2. So it's season 2, episode 1, as we start the new year. Happy New Year to all you guys. This is been an absolute blast, such a learning experience and so much fun. It's just beyond, it's really meta. It's beyond the world of magic. The fact that I get to ask questions and talk to so many amazing magicians. I would not be doing my job if I didn't talk about the next event that we can all get together at and under the name of magic, and that is the International Brotherhood of Magicians next convention coming up in 2023, July 12th through 15th, and that is in Pittsburgh. Boom, here you go right here. Make sure you register for that. We're going to put some links in the chat. We'll put the convention link as well, so make sure you're there. It's going to be a blast. Sean Farquhar told me I can even bring my cat. So I'm going to show you all the tricks that Fitz does. He's been learning some magic. So you're going to do your magic for everybody? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Well, we got to do the show now. Okay. All right. I'll be there in a minute. Daddy will come check on you. By the way, my cat's TikTok just got 1 million views. So let's get a round of applause. Congratulations. I've been in entertainment for 30 years. I have yet to see that kind of success. My kitty cats have taken off. So if you're looking for an edge, you're looking for a way to make it to the top, that's what you got to do. Get yourself a cat, make your cat famous first. Apparently that's the secret, but I'm not kidding you. One of my cat videos took off 1 million views on TikTok. It's sickening. It really is. I'm like, I used to be cool. I know I have some talent. Everybody look at me. They're like, no, we want to look at your cat. Let's look at your cat. Well, maybe we'll have some more kitty cats later. To let you know, we do have an after party after this. So this is about an hour-long show on Facebook. We're going to interview our guests and then try to keep them around and do a little chit-chatting on my Twitch channel, which is called Not That Magic Mike. So you can join us for the after party and have a good time and continue as we keep the magic going through the night. So I'm going to bring up our first guest now, and we also have a really fun Magician's Pose contest in between our guests, so stick around for that. Ladies and gentlemen, she is like a chameleon of magic, playing several different characters. In fact, if you see her at a convention, you may not even recognize her or know it's her because she's got so many different characters she can play, so many different talents and types of shows that she's done. So I'm really excited to talk to her, and award-winning as well. You may know her as Lucy Darling. She actually developed that routine and won in Melbourne at the Magic Festival and won for Best Comedy Magic Show. More recently, in 2019, she was given Best Stage Magician of the Year by the Magic Castle, the Academy of Magical Arts. And I am talking about none other than the beautiful, the talented Carisa Hendrix. So I am so honored to have her as a guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carisa Hendrix. Thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
And where are you broadcasting from? Where are you right now?
I am in Bizarro's film studio.
Oh, very, very nice. I just saw one of your cover photos. Bizarro was in that one, right? That's a show you guys are working on together?
We were just hanging out in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
I had a couple of gigs, and it's nice to hang out with brilliant people when I have the opportunity to do so. So I try to be around Bizarro as much as possible.
Well, if you're in Vegas and you haven't run into Bizarro at some point, then you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry, you're just doing it wrong. So before I get totally like off track, because I will, let me start you off with the first question I ask all my guests, and that is, what is something up your sleeve? Meaning, what makes you you? What skills do you bring to the table that you want to tell the magic world about?
Sure. So I think people already know that, I can't shut up about having gone to art school. And I was performing before I went to art school. I've been performing since I was 16. And, making my money at show business because I was living on my own at the time. I already got kicked out of the house. And it was the way I paid the bills. It was my version of going to work at McDonald's. And the goal was to be either an educator or an artist, or ideally a visual artist that taught visual arts. And so I went to art school, but I had already been infected by the showbiz bug. So I saw all my classes through the lens of performance. And I think that really helped make the act really unique, because I have a kind of visual literacy that I think a lot of people don't recognize as so important in our art form. If you think about it, like clothing and fabric and like the color of things and the way things are painted, all that, those design elements, those are things that people don't realize they're being influenced by. And so we spend so much time with our act making sure the words are correct to influence people the right way. But we don't always spend a ton of time making sure the objects are correct or the design elements are correct, and that they all support the same narrative. And so all the time I see acts that are amazing, but there's something a little off. And I think most people would just go, oh, it's good, but it's not great. And it is great. It's just that the clothing doesn't match the concept, or the environment, or it's not quite well considered, or the props in the act don't feel like the act. I mean, when you see Rob Zabrecki, every little bit of what he has on that stage feels correct for his character. And so I think that going to art school enabled me to have language and awareness around these elements, these visual elements, these design elements, these fiber elements, all these things that come onto stage that contribute to a single concept that the audience gets from your work. So like the second you walk on stage, they say you have maybe 10 seconds for people to form their first opinion of you. And so we work so hard, so many of us work so hard on making sure that first 10 seconds is great. And so either people put a lot of time into making sure the magic is really powerful, or you come out, you do something right away, or there's a great intro, or the opening line is perfect. And that is great. But the look, the objects you're touching, the way you move, that is also really essential to create a strong image. And so I think that's the big thing that has affected my work. And that's the thing I have up my sleeve, is most of an art degree.
And having a field of endeavor outside of just magic and just magic training is so important. And we've talked about that before on the show, of so many magicians really need to venture out and not have such a narrow scope of field. And so what, other than the art school, what other fields of endeavor would you recommend for an aspiring magician, or any magician who wants to hone their skills?
Sure. So I did a lot of improv training in Calgary, as well as some acting training. And I tried my best to do things that were a little unusual, a little off the beaten path. So I did the One Yellow Rabbit Lab Intensive, which is this incredible performance art boot camp. It's 3 weeks. It's like 12-hour days. It's amazing. And there's lots of really great programs like this all around the world, where these avant-garde, unusual performance artists will show you how to make work, and they will, help you hone your skills and help you identify kind of what makes you you. And that kind of pressure cooker environment, as much as it was, mind numbing and suffocating and terrible in its own way and stressful, it was so important, because when you're put through a program like that, so much of the ego falls away. So much of, that mask you wear, the pretense of what you do, so much of that goes away, and you're just left with the truth of who you are, and the way you move, and the way you're perceived, and the things that you want. And so I found that program to be really useful. And again, there's tons and tons of programs like that all over the place. But if you just go and do like traditional acting training like once a week, that can be great. That can add a lot. You learn a lot there. But for me, what I loved about training as an actor was learning how to become raw, and how to identify the beauty in just stillness. Because I think also we go on stage, we do our tricks, and we are like a podium that the tricks sit on, and we are nothing. It's all about the magic. And that's an interesting way to work. But I think especially now in this era, what we really want is connection. We've been isolated from each other for so long. We spend, that is the success of TikTok. And not only is it that, like we just want to scroll and get little hits of dopamine, it's really quick doses of connection. It's here's who I am in the rawest form, in the quickest way. And here's who I am in the rawest form, in the quickest way. And we can look at that the culture is moving that way, and we can help provide our audiences with that by being a little more vulnerable and asking ourselves, who are we, and what do we want to communicate, and what parts of us do we want to share with our audience in a way that is generous and not instead just, selfish and talking about ourselves and boisterous. And well, how can you be vulnerable? How can you invite them in a genuine way that will make them feel like they're getting something of value?
I'd like to come back to that idea and get more examples of that connection that's so important. It's so important and engaging in any audience. Before we continue, though, I'd like to show them a video. Now, we probably want to talk about what you're working on in the future, but this is something I think you probably just finished because it was like a Christmas theme.
The Magical Cirque Show. Yeah.
But everything about this video just inspires me. So I wanted to share that with everyone to show them exactly what you're talking about, when everything about the show just looks amazing, from the way that it's filmed to the type of art that's being portrayed. So give me a second to pull that up here. If I can.
I'm anxious. I don't know which video this is. So.
Oh, good. Well, I got it off your Facebook page, so it's not like it's public, not just some video file someone sent me.
Just because I shared it doesn't mean I like it.
Oh, well, that's true too. Yeah, I keep.
I'm excited. Vulnerable. Good.
So let's make sure that system audio, and we'll do full screen here. Perfect. And is it up? There we go. Take it away. Boom.
A Magical Cirque Christmas is a new holiday spectacular that will dazzle audiences of all ages.
Coming to the Dolby Theater November 25th through the 27th. Visit BroadwayInHollywood.com.
Oh, I thought it was a longer one, actually. That's not I think there was a longer version, and I must have pulled up the shorter one. But that gives us a taste. When I saw that video, it just seems like the type of show that every performer would dream of being involved with. Everything from the cinematography to the movement to the lighting to the stage decor looked amazing. So tell us a little bit about this. Is something that you just finished?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is my second year with the show. The show was developed 4 years ago. It had other magic hosts who were amazing. My brain is melting. I can't think off the top of my head. John Archer did it the year before I did it, and before that it was Paul. I can't remember names right now. I'm a little brain dead. And it was great. It was a great show, but it was a very standard circus-y variety Christmas show with not a lot of substance, and that's because they didn't want that. That was not the brief. During the pandemic, we did an online show. I think a lot of people saw it, especially the IBM people, because we did some stuff with you guys. And the people who created Magical Cirque came to us and were like, "Hey, we love this character. We love how it relates to Christmas. We love that it was a little edgy. Could you work with us and put that vibe into our show?" Absolutely. They sent me the video of the previous show, and I watched John Archer, and John Archer did a great job, but it wasn't a good fit for what I wanted to do, because they wanted to add illusions, and they wanted to add something, and they wanted to add a narrative. And they had brought in this amazing director, and she came to me and said, "Okay, so here's our initial idea. It's going to be a workshop of toys come to life." And I said, "Cool, I don't want to do that. So I'm sure you can find a host that would be great for that, but that's just not me. That feels a little younger than what I want to play. I want to do something that's great for kids, but also that if you took a date to, it wouldn't feel juvenile. And to me, that feels very juvenile." And she was like, "Oh, yeah, me too. I agree." And she was just so easy to work with and so lovely.
Cool.
And she allowed, I went away for a week, and I came up with this new story. And it's this modern Christmas fairy tale. And I really wanted to take an opportunity to think about where we were in culture. Because I knew for most people, not this last year, but the year before, for almost everybody in our audience, this would be their first show back since the pandemic, their first time in a theater. So they're going to be anxious, and they're going to have all these feelings. And I wanted to help the kids and the adults address those feelings in the show. So the narrative was, the way the world works is that the seasons, how that morning you wake up and you smell snow and it's going to be Christmas, or when you walk out and you see the Halloween decorations and Halloween's coming. That feeling doesn't come from nowhere. That feeling is is something that is crafted by the man that is the guardian of time. And he turns the key on the giant clock that turns from one season to another. He changes it from, spring to summer, but he also changes it so that we feel Christmas. Like he changes the movement of time, right? And this year he's just feeling weird. He doesn't feel like doing it. He feels a little sad. And so he's not going to turn the key. So there's going to be no Christmas this year. So those are the stakes. And then luckily the clock has a fail-safe mechanism, which is Lucy Darling. She pops out and she's a little confused. Why am I here? And it's clear that for like 300 years, she's just been drinking and vibing and not doing her job. And so she's a little resentful that she has to come and fix the situation. So she's quite selfish. And so she tries to fix the situation. She tries to cheer him up in like superfluous ways. And then she throws him a party because that's how she would want to be cheered up. And she just doesn't have the right emotional sensitivity to recognize what he's going through. And as a result, I won't give it away because we're going to do this again next year. The universe breaks down. Like all of the choices she makes, because they are selfish choices, but well-meaning, she's kind of the villain of the story, really, cause bigger and bigger problems and bigger and bigger problems. And she's hoisted by her own petard, basically, and she ends up deep, deep underwater, and there's going to be no Christmas this year, and we're stuck in this, the middle of nowhere, in the nothingness, in the void of time where no time can exist, and the audience has to help her get out of it. And throughout that, what we get to do is we get to travel through time. So each of the circus acts are contextualized in like 70s, 20s,
Nice.
old Victorian age. So because the problem with like a classic Christmas variety show, circus themed, is that it just becomes circus vomit and it just becomes Christmas vomit. Like it's very hard to give it a sense of place.
It just
and
becomes
time.
a predictable theme.
Right. It's just like, oh, now it's juggling. Now it's this. Now it's this. But instead, what we do is each era, we have that beautiful LED screen. We have this incredible costume designer, Adam Martin, and we all work together to like make the 70s feel nostalgic and make the 20s feel nostalgic and make the rock and 50s feel nostalgic. And so we get to go through these eras and the music, the Christmas music becomes contextualized and the circus acts become contextualized and you care. And all of those acts are done by the other Christmas sprites. And so you see Lucy, like I'm in the show like 50 minutes out of the 90-minute show. Like I'm doing illusions and doing magic, but it's all narratively motivated throughout the show. And all that comes from my two backgrounds. One, as an actor, because, we get to, like, a lot of the circus performers don't tend to have a huge acting background, but we're not asking them to do something that's so far out of their comfort zone. So they're really game. Like they're so excited to perform. Like our juggler, Christopher Stoynev, plays the Guardian of Time. He doesn't really have an acting background, but he kills that role. Like he's so good. And he's like in his mid-20s. He's playing this old man and the way he moves his body and all this stuff. In the act, you really, believe that character. And not this last year, but the year before, we had this amazing aerialist, and she put together this character that we were calling Angry Elf. That's like this elf that's just super mad to be there. And it's really fun because the narrative is so loose that people can do a lot with it. And so first year was out. It was pretty good. We had some opportunities this year to like refine some of it. We did some things that were great and some things I didn't love. Hopefully we lose the stuff I didn't like and we put back in the stuff I liked from the previous year. But it's so fun because it's like, I get to tour the show for 2 months. We tweak it as we go because I'm one of the creatives, and very rarely do you have one of the creatives on a tour like this. Usually the show gets locked and then is locked, but we get to like breathe with the show and let it develop just a little more once we hit the road. And it's so great. It's so creatively satisfying. It's so weird. It's such an ambitious show. And it's so nice to go out and do these like big scale, like 2,000 person rooms, one-nighters, right? So we show up at 5 a.m, we build the whole set, we tech the lights, we do the show at 7, we tear everything down, we get on the bus, we sleep on the bus on the way to the next city, we build another city, and every night it's like standing ovations and crazy nonsense and like trying to one-up the show we did before. And it's such a blast to do.
Excellent. Now I can picture how you have opportunities to connect with the crowd in that type of show, but I wanted to bring back, before we talk more about your character and Lucy Darling, what are some ways, especially over the last 3 years, that you've found within your act ways to connect with your crowd, to interact?
Sure. So crowd work has always been central to what I do, no matter what character I've created. Even when I was doing silent characters, I always really believed in crowd work. Now, if people don't know what that is, crowd work can be defined as, for me, I think a lot of people define it differently, but for me, crowd work is a conversation with the audience, right? I create a game that you participate in, that you create the variables, and then I solve for comedy, right? It's like an equation. So I go, you give me variables, I make it into a joke. That's the game. And you can change that game in a variety of ways. And, in its most basic form, it's what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Right? You put in variables, I turn it into a joke. I think most of us start that way. We have to find a way to get the audience excited. My passion in the last couple of years has been to take that idea of crowd work and mess it up so much that it doesn't look like crowd work anymore, that it's not really identifiable, but it's still that same game. So if anybody saw the new show I did in Chicago at the Rhapsody last year, my new run with the Indulgence 2.0, there's a routine in it where I basically get a person to come up on stage, sit at a bar with me, and we go on a date. And my job is to make whatever he says, I interview him, and my job is to make whatever he says interesting and to try to get him to do something unusual. So one night we ended up, and it's all very organic. And so it's different every night. One night a guy did a magic trick for me very poorly. One night we had a guy do the worm. One night we had a guy who had his story was like he was a banker now, but he gave up at opera singing years and years ago. And his girlfriend was like, do it. And so the audience really talked him into it. And then he stood up, and this unassuming man sang the most beautiful aria I have ever heard. I literally cried on stage.
Wow.
And then I had, it's the routine right before my finale, because typically that routine is very hard to follow with just anything other than my finale, because it's such a strong piece. And I've also become really passionate about helping other people do that with their work, of going, okay, so you've got this great routine. It's really, really solid. Can we find a game? Can we find a piece of crowd work in it that isn't just what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Can we elevate that? Can we go beyond those first questions and get them to play something with you? Anyone that's seen my multiplying bottles knows that the beginning of that routine has this Mad Lib section where I'm telling a story about Lucy's upbringing, but the audience is making up the details. And she has to find a way to incorporate those details they give her in the story. And it's just a classic improv game of give me a city and give me a profession. It's that kind of thing. But because it's so deeply woven into that routine, it doesn't feel like something you've seen before. It feels fresh and organic. And it really, really engages them, because makes the whole routine feel more present, because they're thinking, well, she couldn't have been doing something from memory. This can't be something she wrote. She must be making it up as she goes along, because these are elements we just gave her, even though it's not really how it works. It's a routine. If you've seen the routine, it's basically the same every time within reason, but because there's those fresh elements, it
Sure.
feels so much more present for the audience.
That's beautiful. I talk a lot about improv. Absolutely love that. Our next guest has a background in improv as well. And I'd like you to speak a little bit more of that, because most magicians don't really know the concept. It's a foreign concept to them, because we're so practiced and precise, and you have to do everything in front of a mirror. So the idea of improv and how you would put that in a magic routine seems so strange. But how could you talk about how actually incorporating improv makes it even a more magical moment for them?
Sure. So one of the important things with any magic routine is that we have to get them to the point of the willful suspension of disbelief. And so they have to feel like they can give themselves permission to agree that this is a magical thing they're seeing, right? And I think we're very concerned about feeling stupid or about getting tricked, right? There's a lot of weird antagonism, and we know, because people, when we perform magic, or people from certain cultures where they don't have that kind of concern, they react more. People from cultures where being tricked is more of a problem, or something that they're less familiar with, they're not going to give you the reaction you want. And you can also see that in certain professions. I find that lawyers don't they love magic, but they don't tend to react as big as a lot of other people because they spend their lives being taught that reacting to things is not good. So you have to give them a safe space to react. And a good way to do that, in my opinion, is to just talk to them and make them comfortable and anchor them to the space, to remind them that the things that are happening now in the room in front of them. This is the only time I'm going to say this. And so saying the name of somebody from the audience is an anchoring thing. Also, them hearing something that the audience says, especially once they get what the game is. So the audience says something to me, and I've got to come back. And then the audience says something to me, and I've got to come back. And the audience says something, and I've got to come back. Now, the next time the audience says something, a lot of the people in that room are going to try to, because that's what your brain does, in the same way you anticipate tricks, some of your brain is going to be occupied by trying to anticipate my response to that person. So my job is to make sure that my response to that person is better than your anticipated response. But also, your brain is so busy trying to anticipate my response, you're not anticipating where the magic's going. So it's a lot easier to trick you because I have taken that part of your brain that's working on puzzles, and I've given it another puzzle that's more fun and more satisfying, where the reward is you're so clever, instead of the reward being, oh, you broke the trick. So I think I have a few friends who see me do magic, and I work very hard on my magic to make it fooling and do everything I can, but it's not like I'm not doing super knuckle busty stuff most of the time, unless I'm at the Chicago Magic Lounge and like working tables. Unless I have to, I am coasting, right? Like a lot of the time. And I'm getting reactions like I am doing second deals. Like it's nuts because I have put all this other work behaviorally into giving the audience an opportunity to let go and feel comfortable being fooled. And so I get these big reactions out of fairly simple things.
It's crazy when you start thinking about the psychology behind improv. It becomes magical in a sense that you almost start to predict exactly what someone's thinking or what they're going to say, just because you're incorporating what these psychological techniques, and that in itself becomes basically like magic to people that don't have that background and don't have that understanding of it, and realize that this whole moment feels like it's built just for them.
Yeah, I love what Meadow said in the comments too, is that the anticipation is the misdirection. Like I love the way she said that. I think that is like, she just said that whole thing I said in 10 minutes in one sentence. She's so good at that because she's totally right. Like getting their brains doing some other activity is a great form of misdirection.
Absolutely. And shout out to Meadow for helping me find my guest for tonight. You and Matt both, that she contacted, and she'll be joining us on the after party as well, because I know you guys have worked together. So that should be a lot of fun. So thank you, Meadow, for that. Now let's talk about your amazing character, I guess, that most people in our world or this community know you for. That's how I first saw you, which was Lucy Darling. I'm going to share. I thought I do have footage. This is a screenshot that I did during the IBM online convention, but and I have somewhere I think some footage from that show, but I'm sure you have better footage than that anyways, than what I just was able to screen capture, but you can just tell by this still that you have so much going on in this act, and I think we were just so blown away by the work that was involved, and the set decoration, the other characters involved, and of course the amazing character that you put together. So tell us about the beginnings of Lucy Darling.
Okay, sure. So the beginnings of Lucy specifically, and then I'll do the online show because they were very different experiences.
Okay.
I had been doing characters for a long time, but mostly what I did was roving characters for corporate. That was my bread and butter. I did a lot of corporate work. I ran like a mid-sized entertainment company in Western Canada. We worked. I like doing work. And so we worked a lot. And so I came up with these like amazing showgirl characters where there was 5 showgirls. They were all different colors. I made the costumes from scratch. I hired actors with a dance background. So it wasn't just burlesque dancers. Like they could do a routine, but really the meat of it was that they each had these characters, and there was like infighting, and one was like secretly sleeping with the other one's husband. And as you interacted with these characters, the story evolved around you. And I loved that. And we had like Betty Boom and Mimi Martini, and they all had these fun names, and it was so great. And I loved it. And I usually played Mimi Martini, which was a little slight Lucy Darling vibe. And then I created like lots of characters. Like Your Fairy Stepmother was one of my first magic characters. And so like the idea is, she had little tiny wings and like a big, you know, beehive, and it's like nonsense. And she was a little lazy and she didn't really want to do magic for you. Listen, I want to make your dreams come true, but I don't think you really want your dreams to come true. And so like all these weird characters over the years and like big bird characters. And so I got to live in lots of different bodies. Like that's how it felt. Like I got to be different people. And I noticed there were certain people that it was more fun to be than other people. I had like a male, detective character that I did at these events, and I loved being him. He was so fun to be. And so I had come up with this idea of doing this like old-timey, old Hollywood, Eartha Kitt, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Mae West, that kind of character. And I knew it was going to be like quite outside my skill set. And I couldn't really talk myself into doing it because it just felt so ambitious based on what I was used to doing. Because it required like commitment to acting that I didn't really have to do as a roving character. Because roving characters, if you like mess up the accent, or there's so much forgiveness and you don't need to have a ton of material. It's such a great way to like practice being other people.
Yeah, you can improv a lot more in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a lot of how I built my improv skills and my crowd work skills, because a good roving character is just improv the whole thing. And I loved it. And so, I did a little workshop at Atlanta Harvest with Zabrecki. I did the full 1-day workshop, and I didn't know him at the time. We're friends now, but at the time he never met me before. And in that workshop, I mentioned this vulnerable idea I had, and he was the first person that was like, "That's great. You should do that." And everyone else said, "You shouldn't do that. Nobody wants that. That's stupid." And so I had this conflicting thing in my head of like, this is a great idea. One of my heroes, Rob Zabrecki, thinks it's a great idea. Everybody else hates it. I know what I'll do. I'll put a bunch of money into it. I'll like hire a good accent coach and I'll put it together. And then I'll go to Australia. I've never been to Australia. I don't know anybody in Australia. And if it's terrible, no one will find out. Who's going to tell on me from Australia? It's fine. So
good plan.
I write this thing. I fly to Australia. There's a whole other story I won't get into of like, it goes terrible, but also goes great. And the whole point of it was like, I wanted to make a character that was like the characters I did that were fun to be. I wanted to make a character that the primary thing was that being her felt really good. And so, I made her believe that she was the smartest person in the world. I made her the smartest person in the world. I made her the most competent person in the world. I made her effortlessly beautiful and selfish and indulgent and, vaguely alcoholic, like just all these things that would be so fun to be. And I think this overwhelming fun I had doing it became infectious, and it just took off. I mean, you're right. I did Australia, won the award. Within 3 months, I got booked for the first time at the Magic Castle. Did the Magic Castle. Like that happened in July. I did it for the first time. By November, I did the Magic Castle for the first time. And it went viral. Like people were talking, like people couldn't get in. And by like within a year, I was doing every convention and I was everywhere and winning awards and, people beating down my door. And it's all, I think it's really all because I started with what would be so fun. It's like the most fun thing I could think of doing. And it's so crazy because it was something I did for me. It was never meant to be commercially successful. And now this is where I am. And a similar thing happened when we did the online show, was that I really resisted doing online stuff with Lucy because I was sad and I didn't want to get my sadness on the character, right? Because she was such a joyful character. And then slowly the online shows started coming out, and they weren't, you remember at the beginning, nobody knew what they were doing, so they weren't great. But I love this idea of there was a whole new art form arriving. And I was excited to like get to be part of creating the rules of that new genre. And so at the time, there were a whole bunch of online courses at like Harvard University and Yale and all these things were like releasing their first year film programs. I can't remember which schools, some fancy school. I don't know. And I, in a week, I watched every lecture for this first year film study and learned about lighting and filming and all this stuff and picked an idol, which ended up being Wes Anderson. I just really love the look of like a Wes Anderson thing. I think the artist in me, the visual artist, was like, look at the consistency of the lines and how beautiful. And so Wes Anderson and like year one, and then I kind of did some second year film studies. So we had this arsenal of knowledge. And that's where we started from. We didn't go, hey, let's try some stuff and see what works. We started from like, I know what I want this to look like. I know where we're going. And the first couple of shows were garbage because you just got to start. Right. And we didn't have all the gear and it didn't work. And, you know, the first couple of shows, if you look at them, it looks like we're performing underwater. It's so terrible. But we did something. And then, you know, I bought more equipment and I learned how things work. And I bought a new camera and I learned how that worked. And we got a shotgun mic. And, you know, I was lucky enough to be quarantining with these two incredible Canadian actors. So I had all these resources. And I think the other thing is like the thing we missed as a culture was being together. So, you know, when we figured out what the relationship was between these characters, what people really enjoyed was, okay, you get to see this fun Lucy having a good time, which we haven't had a good time in a while, and also being around people, being together. And we get to enjoy this like camaraderie and this togetherness and these like shared goals of these people. And so it made people, I think, it was entertaining, but primarily I think it made people feel less lonely.
Absolutely. And of course, the online show is where I first saw you, and just out of wanting to have fun, had no idea the attention I would get for entering your lookalike contests, which I'm not sure whose idea it even was, but I thought that was brilliant for you to have the lookalike contest. That was your idea. That was what a great idea. Phenomenal. It was one of,
so much fun. Only did it the one time because it was like, I wonder if people will even do this. And then so many people did. We were like, okay, we need to be more conservative with our games. We played a game at almost every show. So we were doing like caption contests and all these things, like things to encourage people to be participating. And that felt fun for the IBM because people would know. And yours was a doozy.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe that I won by failing so hard. Which, in fact, we'll come back to it. We'll circle back because I do have, after we bring Matt up, I have the Magician's Pose contest that I started doing on this show, which is a lot of fun. So I've got pictures of the two of you. And this is amazing. You're incredible. I could keep you talking for 3 hours easy, and not even realize. I can't believe how much time has flown by. So I'm going to let you take a break and then bring you back when we do the pose contest. But real quick, and then I'm going to think of a lot more questions. But has anybody said that the character, and it hit me as I was reviewing your videos, do you know the agent from Frasier? The one who plays his agent, BB, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
So absolutely. The way that she speaks, her mannerism, how she talks, that also, when I was watching your videos, it reminded me of, I was just wondering if you had gotten that from anybody else, or if anybody pointed out that
no, I guess
she kind of reminded me of Lucy Darling.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a vibe there. I get a lot of different things that people that like, to me at the first, I'm like as soon as you said that, I was like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I hear it. But like Karen from Will and Grace, I get sometimes. They just remade the movie. She takes care of kids. She's got a parasol. Help.
Mary Poppins.
Oh, okay. Sometimes people think Mary Poppins because she's sassy. But yeah, like I hear, definitely BB. But people hear in it what they want to hear in it. Like people will even hear elements of their own accent in it, right? Because it's just such a weird. It's so specific. Like we made really clear. My accent coach was so great, and we made such clear, consistent things and choices that I think people see in it a lot of different things, like things that they like eccentric ladies. They're like, it's like this other eccentric lady. It's like, of course it is.
Oh, and so before I send you backstage real quick, I didn't point out that even though you've been basically circulating around California and Vegas and traveling, you are Canadian, in fact.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I like to point that out because we have a lot of, I love Canadians. I have so many Canadian friends, and we have a lot of Canadians that are watching us now. And so I know they're thrilled to see your success. And we always love the art that comes out of Canada. So thank you so much. I'm going to bring you back in just a moment as we welcome Matt. Guys, let her know, show her some love in chat. Amazing to have our guest here. We're going to bring her back for the after party and for the Magician's Pose contest. This is Carisa Hendrix, also known as Lucy Darling. Thank you so much. And now we're gonna keep it going. So I decided I'm gonna push the pose contest to the end because I got pictures of both these guys. And she actually really impressed Penn and Teller with her character that they had seen her perform before, and they didn't even see it coming. They didn't know that she was going to do this character. So she performed for the Foolish Show as Lucy Darling. I am super psyched for our next guest. This is my first time meeting him actually, but those of you that have been following the world of magic, anytime you hear the names Penn and Teller, you're super impressed, whether you're a layman or a magician. This is one of the writers for the 9 years he's been writing on the Penn and Teller show. And not only that, he's hosted Penn's podcast as well and taken a bunch of the Foolers on the road to present the Foolers live, that you can buy tickets and we'll watch the show. He's here with us, and he's going to tell us his whole backstory, which is amazing to me, about why he's now performing magic, because that's not how he got his start. But please welcome to Something Up My Sleeve, the one and only Matt Donnelly. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I
Welcome.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Your clippity cloppity intro. It's like every time I sit down with my accountant to do my taxes, I kind of go like, I don't know what I do. Here's all the things. It all kind of
exactly.
It kind of adds up to almost a year's income. Here it is.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just a hodgepodge of weirdness and entertainment. Yeah. That's when you're having fun in your career, when you don't know how to answer when someone sits next to you on an airplane and goes, "What do you do?"
Yes.
Right.
I really don't know ever how to respond to that question, but yeah, it means I'm having fun for sure.
So question number one, what's something up your sleeve?
Well, you said it. I have a tour coming up, the Foolers tour. We just started rehearsing today at the Penn and Teller Theater, because one of the coolest things about this tour is that Penn and Teller are giving us some of their famous tricks to put into the show to be performed by us. And
wow.
It's a first for us. It's a first for them.
Sure.
And so, I was rehearsing a very iconic Penn and Teller piece today, and that was crazy, scary, and intimidating. But I'm excited to be playing the role of Penn in one of Penn and Teller's signature tricks.
And can you tell us who are you starting your tour with?
Alex Ramon, Jessica Jane Peterson, and Vinny Grasso are the
beautiful.
other three coming. So we're going to Milwaukee, Akron, Ohio, and Indianapolis, Indiana.
Wow. Grasso is one that I need to get him to come and talk to us on the show. He did an amazing job on Fool Us. He lives in Vegas as well.
Yes.
And Jessica's always on cruise ships. She's actually was doing one of the other IBM online events that she's been hosting as well.
That woman hates dry land. I don't know what it
apparently,
is. That woman can get out sea. She does that. She actually, when she's here in Vegas, she has to take Dramamine when she's here. It's
just
because
the land's not moving. Yeah. Reverse balance.
Yeah.
No, so that's the live Foolish show. In addition, let's talk about the podcast, Sunday School, I believe it's called.
Yeah, Penn Sunday School. Penn's been doing it for a long time, and I started off as a substitute host, and slowly made my way into permanent co-host on that show. But yeah, I mean, I've been on it, I think, for about 8 years.
Wow.
It's been going longer than that. But Penn loves podcasting, and he's a great talker, great storyteller, great thinker. So I actually have the easiest job there that anyone could have. Many a person would love to talk to Penn Jillette for a couple hours a week.
Sure.
And I get to. So I'm incredibly fortunate.
And that's why I'm so excited to have you here, is because he's Penn and Teller are heroes for so many of us, and not only does that obviously strike attention in the heart of every magician, but they've created success in the real world that we know so many magicians that we go fanboy over that no one else has heard of, but everybody's heard of them. So you get a reaction from non-magicians when you tell them who your friends are and who you've worked with.
Yeah, like I was so ignorant about magic growing up, I just understood that there was Copperfield. I didn't necessarily watch his stuff. I just knew about Penn and Teller and Amazing Jonathan because I love comedy, and those guys would do Comic Strip Live or The Tonight Show or something like that. And so that was it. I was like, oh, that I like funny magic, and that was kind of my big. And it was only until I moved to Vegas in 2008, and I was like, oh, there's worlds I don't understand about it.
And always more to learn. It's impossible to learn everything there is about magic, because it changes and grows every day. Every day someone's going to come out with something that'll fool you.
For sure.
So your backstory is amazing to me. So your background is in comedy and improv.
Yes.
Which is outstanding. And so that's how you got to be friends with them before actually having an interest in performing magic.
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, that was my strength. I was hired as a non-magician, as a non-variety performer, because in the writers' room, we worked on a few TV pilots, one TV show, and Tim's Vermeer, and a couple of other projects they did as well. And I was always in the room as the guy who, Penn and Teller would be like, "Oh, everybody knows what a daylight seance is," and I'd be like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," and will it help us float the chicken that I wrote into this intro? And so that's how I started. Was being just a comedy guy. I was like their everyman voice in the writers' room. But then cut to working on Fool Us, I got, quite frankly, just an unfair crash course in magic. And with it became a huge curiosity. And playing along while we're taping the seasons as to what will and won't fool those guys, and so it was just mouthing off about that to Penn that began my magic career.
And so, yeah, what an origin story. Who could say? Everybody's like, yeah, I saw a guy doing magic, got interested. Oh, I got a magic kit. You basically had no intention of performing magic and were challenged by Penn to learn a magic trick.
It's an interesting story. It's not one where I start off likable. I think that's the hard part that I tiptoe on every time, which is that, like in comedy, like in New York, like I was a teacher at a lot of the big improv schools. I was performing a lot of the big comedy shows, and a lot of my friends got big breaks, and I didn't. A lot of my friends are pretty famous, and I'm not. And what I do is I prep Allison Hannigan for every contestant. So I will go talk to these magicians, or at least look through their background information and everything else. And I was basically out of like this frustration of talking to full-time magician after full-time magician after full-time magician. I was like, look at all these guys are out there, getting out there in front of crowds, and they're not super famous. Like that's all I want, And I very I don't know, arrogantly, I know we're supposed to keep it PG, so I was a jerk, and I said, all these guys make a full-time living. I should just try to learn like 4 tricks or something, right? Like pleading to Penn, like tell me no, and Penn just said, it's harder than you think, but you also might be better at than you think. Why don't you try learning one trick first, and said it in earnest. And I was like sweaty immediately. And he also didn't let it go. So for the rest of that season, I'd pop by his dressing room to say hi. He would just start brainstorming different ideas of what I could do to do a magic trick. And I was telling the story to my father, and my father was like, you're getting basketball advice from Michael Jordan. You might want to think about playing some basketball. I was like,
right,
I guess so. And then I still met with desperateness. It still didn't quite click. I started quietly working with Johnny Thompson on the side, because Johnny Thompson is the greatest and was one of the most generous human beings with magic knowledge there ever was. Just a great knowledge base, and a great instructor, and just a warm, awesome, friendly person. And so I just started working with him a little bit just to work on. We worked on like Chop Cup and a couple of other card things. And then I had a job in Vegas where I was the stage manager of 50 Shades the Parody. I know a lot of fans out there. Please don't type in. And then that was closing. But I was also hired as a comedy consultant for the show Opium over at the Cosmopolitan that was starting 5 months apart. So I had this gap of employment and 2 real children who needed actual food. And so I was like, how do I can't get a good job and then quit. I definitely want to help create this show Opium. And so I was like, well, Johnny's teaching me a trick. I'll see if Penn will teach me a trick too. And then I asked Penn, he said yes. And so I went to tell her and I said, hey, Johnny's teaching me one trick. Penn's teaching me one trick. Tell her, will you teach me one trick? And he said yes. And then I said, Well, now everyone's going to say yes. And so I made up a show of 7 magicians teaching me 7 tricks. And then I made up a character for it, and I did a Kickstarter, and it got successfully funded. And that got me from job to job. But that, plan didn't work the way it was supposed to, because what happened was Piff the Magic Dragon was one of the people who taught me one of those tricks. Piff the Magic Dragon saw me at that show and said, hey, when I tour, on the weekends or whatever, can you open for me on the road? And so my job at Opium ended up being temporary instead of permanent, even though I wanted to be permanent. But then, as luck would have it, Piff gave me 60 dates in my first year of magic. And so I opened for Piff in comedy clubs on the road. And that was nuts. It was a great...
That's
yeah, it was nuts. And that's the thing, is like, look, I struggle. You don't become a magician at 39 because everything went good for you. Like, I failed at so much stuff. So I know how stupid lucky I am. Like, I know it's dumb. Like, I can never write a how to be a magician book, because the answer is like, be friends with the greatest performers in magic ever and have them pity you.
That's a good how-to book. That's a good how-to book, though. I'll read it. I would totally read that. Yeah.
So I totally get it. But but I love it. I didn't know how much I needed it. I started doing improv. I started doing improv at 15. Started performing every Friday, Saturday at 16. I was performing, so many improv shows a week, and then teaching all these improv theaters. And for 20 years, I really was like an improv zealot. Like, I really loved teaching. I taught at festivals. I loved all of it. I didn't realize I needed something new. But all of a sudden, I was being a student again and tackling a new art form, and an art form that is so much more rich and storied and documented than improv's history. It was a real. It changed my life. Like, I love it, and I'm grateful to have found it. And it surprised me. It surprised Penn and Teller.
So during the after party, can we do a couple improv games?
Sure. Yeah.
Because I actually started, when I started doing this, that was part of the plan, was that I was going to close every show by forcing my guests to take part in some improv games. And then I realized how little background they have in improv, that most of them are really kind of clueless. And so we'd have to start kind of real basic, real 101, which could, the very initial improv could be somewhat boring for an audience if you're just learning the process. So I didn't keep it going as much as I would hoped, but it's so much fun, and occasionally we've been able to do a few. I have your video pulled up. Like toward the end, can I show when you went on Fool Us? I like kind of like their reaction, so I have it pulled up to like when you're on your arm. Okay, so I'm gonna show this part and just to see their reaction, because they are knowing the backstory of how they already knew you, never expected to see you on stage, or originally never expect you to see you do magic, and then here you go. It's beautiful.
103 minus 23 gives me a total of 580.
Oh, yeah.
And this trick is completely examinable. Nope. That's your... Yeah, okay.
Not Donnelly, everyone. All right, I'll let you put yourself together.
What's going on?
You know how it works.
Oh, yes, I do.
All right. So,
You know how it works.
Penn and Teller.
I started magic basically on a dare by Penn. And so put a preview together of my first magic show. And so I can tell you, don't do your first magic show ever in front of Penn and Teller.
I stand by that.
I cut my finger open. I bled all over myself, and
it
it did not go well at all. I'm very happy to get back here and at least do something pretty good in front of them.
All right, let's see if your friends Penn and Teller figured it out.
Oh, they didn't figure it out. They didn't know. They had no idea.
Well, that's what I want to talk. If anyone listens on Fool Us, I've been giving this away. So when you do Fool Us, the most annoying thing about it is that when you say I did Fool Us, the first thing people ask is, did you fool them? It's the first thing that pops right out of their mouth. And I always say, yeah. And then I wait for that beat and I say, you'll never check. And then I leave it alone. and I give that
Nice.
to every other magician. I give that away.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, why not? Just don't. They don't know.
You'll never
They-
check. You don't
Those
actually
muggles
care.
don't know anything.
No.
So on a show like this, when you say a writer on the show, because you've got people coming on that they have their act, Allison's
Yeah.
interviewing them. What is briefly? Can we talk about the writing process for that type of show? What goes into that?
I mean, it's a lot of. I mean, no, I don't get a lot. I've not been nominated for any Emmys, and nobody writes to be like, loved it. It's very procedural. It's a game show, so you have to hit certain factors or whatever. You have to write 60 versions of "We'll be right back with more magic after this" every season. I'm thinking about trying to use that chat AI thing maybe to write next season. But at this point, it's impossible. I think it's impossible for me to write things I haven't said before, that Allison hasn't said before. But it's just making sure that you're always setting the table for each magician as best as you can. I think in the early seasons, I'm almost embarrassed because I wanted to be comedic no matter what. But now I've learned to be more comedic for the comedic magicians and try to make sure that Allison sets the tone for the tone of the magic that's going to come out on stage, and balance the fun of it with it. But most of the time, like, I write for Penn sometimes too for the TV show, and like Penn doesn't like adverbs, so I don't write a lot of adverbs. He likes to do it with his voice, so that's true. He can do that. Allison, we actually have a $1 bet every year with the executive producer, Andrew Golder, as to whether or not I can get Allison to attempt to say prestidigitation. She won't say it. And so we taped the whole season in 9 days. And so one of that happens is that means we'll tape. We'll be right back with more Fool Us. We taped 30 versions of those like right at the same time. Like Allison just runs through them. So once this season, I try to sneak in the word prestidigitation in there, and she sees it and just stops.
That's great.
Just stops.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. So I always have to wait till we play that joke when we're not under pressure for time or overtime with the crew or something like that. I can't let a little joke actually cost actual money. But those are the other things that you try to think of. But it's always setting up the tone of the show. Sometimes we have a theme for the show. Like the last one that aired, I think is all animal acts. So we have an all animal show.
Oh, wow, cool.
Or when we have like 3-time foolers or that kind of stuff. So we're just always setting the table for whatever that episode's going to be. And then because we don't tape in order, I just always have to keep a mental block in my head as to having enough lines to go in and out of different episodes, and just kind of keep a grid going of making sure that we have the right amount of lines for stuff. And then I really like talking to all the magicians and just getting to know them, and then getting their stories, and then helping Allison find their extra thing. I mean, the biggest thing I do is give a pep talk to the magicians, saying like, you're going to go out there and do a great performance, and then you're going to want to watch Penn and Teller talk about your trick. And I'm telling you, you have a second opportunity to talk to Allison Hannigan and make another great moment for your reel of you hitting it off with the host of the show, who's a big time celebrity that everyone loves, and make sure that you just like whatever's going to happen with Penn and Teller is going to happen, whether you look at them or not. I can't convince you enough to stop looking at them and hit it off with Allison.
Yeah.
Get that second clip for your reel, So
like when Rob Zabrecki gave her a hug. That was amazing. That was
all
so
that
great.
Stuff, Piff the Mad Dragon, like eating the banana,
yeah.
all that stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I think people who plan for those moments, I think it helps the show tremendously.
So more questions in a moment as we keep him here a little longer for the after party. And now I'm going to try to pull you guys up if I can put you in the little squares. But basically, my camera is going to be replaced with the pictures for the pose contest. So for a moment, Matt, I'm going to bring you backstage. And guys, round of applause for Matt Donnelly. And we're going to bring him back in just a moment. So honored to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We never have enough time on this. Never have enough time. All right, we'll be right back. And I'm going to try to see if I can pull them both up in a moment. But let's see if I guess I'll try that. Let's see if we do this. Just try. Yeah, I mean you'll be able to see. You'll be able to see my. We lost. We lost them. Oh no! What did we do? Did I hang up on him?
I certainly didn't do it.
All right, I'm back. I'm sorry. I hit a thing. I hit a button.
we'll do this.
Don't
then
push
can,
buttons.
I am an ogre.
Oh, here we go. This is perfect. So now this is exactly what I was going for. So now we have your camera small, and you'll be able to see the photo, which will replace my image in just a moment. So we have 3 photos, and everybody gets to vote in chat, and then I'm going to tabulate the scores. So remove the camera for a moment, which is
I just
here.
want to say,
And
Owen Anderson, I love your heighten of my joke. That is perfect.
this is going to be pose number 1, which
I love
she
that. I will check. That's great.
She gets extra points because of the text. So here's Carisa looking really sexy. Let's make magic. I know what you're thinking. This is going to be a hard one to beat. This is going to be really tough. But we do have this is pose number 1. We do have 2 more for you to choose from, and then I'll show you the winner. So guys, get ready. This is Carisa, sexy pose number 1. Remember, the contest is best magician's pose. So pose number 2 is going to be Matt Donnelly, the mind noodler, with his giant
Hot.
fish and his big stick.
Love a man in
So-
uniform.
So as sexy as that first one was, I have a thing for overalls as well. And
Thank you.
you know, with a fish that big and a big smile. So here
you know,
it
the
is,
big pole, really nice.
the big giant pole,
You know
and
what
we
they
know
say,
that it
big fish.
extends. I know that it extends, so that pole
Does.
gets even bigger than that. So that is pose number 2. Pose number 3 is gonna be right here, and that is myself in the look-alike contest. So you're actually voting on the smaller version. It's hard to tell us apart, I know, but Carissa's there on the right, and I'm on the left. And
Okay.
it was
I got it now. I have it.
Here was my favorite thing about this. First of all, I loved everything about this. We threw it out as a game, thinking 3 people participate. We had so many participants. Here's my favorite: Sean Farquhar put a dress on to try to win this, and still lost to this image.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than Sean committing 100% and still losing.
Oh
Mwah.
yeah, he was.
Just
He was.
awesome.
He was mad too. Anytime it's a contest, yeah, for
livid.
sure. He
It
was
was
livid,
so
and
great.
because technically I didn't look at all like Lucy Darling, so I didn't even follow the rules. But when I saw your pictures, I knew I had nothing to look like her. I didn't have that wig or that dress, but I knew I had 2 swords and a black vest, and for some reason a wig that looked very much like yours. So
What
I
I
knew I
like-
could pull off.
what I
a
That
like is
wasn't
Carissa
a wig. That
lookalike.
was my real hair. I walked around my life like that for 7 years.
Well, mine was a wig though.
In the picture, Carissa looks like she maybe could behead herself. Michael, you look like you just did.
I did.
You finished the move, and now your head is just barely hanging on before it topples off.
It's going right through, yeah. So that was one out of only 2 times in my life that I've actually beaten Sean Farquhar at a contest. So I was pretty excited
Well,
about that.
I'm a
Oh,
huge
at a
fan
contest.
of.
I thought beating him was the end of the conversation. I've beaten him twice. Once with my fist, once with my
Yeah.
beauty.
Yeah, no, only
I'm
beauty.
I'm a huge fan of Leonardo from the Ninja Turtles, so I know which image is getting my vote.
Nice. All right. So we're tabulating. Meadow is tabulating for me. Remember, we have pick number 1, which is sexy Carissa. Pick number 2, which is sexy Matt.
That's
show
the
you that
first time
one.
that's been said, but thank you.
Right here.
You have 2
and then
children. There's no way that's true. I know how babies are made.
Pick
At
number
least
3,
twice.
which is sexy Michael. And it appears that it looks like we have our winner. The winner is Topless Michael Lamar. Yes, our winner today of the Magician's Pose contest.
Yeah.
Seen
Trump card.
specifically at FISM. This was for some reason on the wall at FISM. I don't know why, but sexiest magician ever. Topless Michael Lamar is the winner of today's Magician Pose contest. So thank you to all our contestants.
I didn't know
Beautiful.
Michael Lamar played a circus villain in a 1930s movie, but I'm glad to discover this.
Oh, incredible. We had so much fun with that. All the other ones they had all these great magicians and FISM winners lined up, black and white photos down the hall leading into FISM. Everyone else had clothes on but him. I don't know why. Maybe he was trying to show nothing up my sleeve.
Was his signature trick tying a family to the train tracks before the train arrived?
That's it. It totally does look like that. Yeah. Like
we had all been talking about these pictures because I had seen them earlier, and I was with Max in one of the rooms during FISM. And he looked over at me and said, what is this about this picture of Michael? And I was like, oh, on our way out, I'll show you. And he goes, do I want to see this? And I went, yeah, I think so. And so later I went and showed him, and he goes, why are you showing this to me? And I said, well, remember we were talking about it before? And he goes, you should have known. I did not want to see this. And I was like, okay, that's fair. Okay, I'm so sorry. It was really bad.
Weirdly, I've always loved his magic. I learned so much from Michael Amar and his VHS tapes from years ago. And weirdly, seeing that topless picture of it just increased my respect for him. I don't know why. It's so wild. It was like not only he's a great magician, but he's, he knows himself.
Do you equate arousal with respect? Does that go hand in hand with you?
Maybe some. I never thought about that of myself, but I guess there must be something to that. And I really do like overalls. I wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
That's a thing for me. I don't know why. Crazy.
In October, we were at the Magic Castle, and he was doing a set, and he killed. And they have that new magic condo where everybody stays together, and there are a bunch of people staying there, and Bizarro and Shocker was there, and everybody was there. And then somebody had brought a chin-up bar, and they all started doing a chin-up competition. And Biz and I were just sitting there like this, and Charlie Caper was there too. And Biz and I were like, when people think about magicians hanging out, I don't think they think about pull-up competitions. But that's how you get. That's why he's taking that topless photo. He worked for that.
That's earned.
I mean,
he earned it.
He's I don't know his age, but I know he's older than us and any of us here. And the fact that he did earn it. If you look that good at his age, then you should walk around with no shirt on. And he doesn't need sleeves to work anyway. So with that, I'm going to close this first portion of our Facebook Live on the IBM page. Thank you again to the IBM. Don't forget the convention coming up in July in Pittsburgh. And we're going to keep our guests for a moment. So as I end that broadcast, we will start the after hours in just a moment. And we'll invite Meadow Perry to come and hang out. We might have a few guests pop in that were past guests invited. We'll see. So Meadow, whenever you want, come on in here, and I'm going to end this one. Remove that should be how it works. And 1, 2. Good to go. All right, nice. All right, here we go. And now we're now not that we have to be adults, but we don't have to be G-rated anymore. Yeah, you can say whatever you want, and more importantly, say whatever you want about magic. Yeah, no holds barred for sure.
Listen, word shit. I'm kidding.
I'm gonna fix a drink. It might mysteriously look like the drink I'm fixing is buttered noodles and garlic bread for my 2 children, but that's what I'm doing.
No problem. Yeah. Hey, that's good stuff. That should be it's a type of vodka, butter noodle vodka. But speaking of noodle, actually, that's one I didn't get a chance to ask you because initially I'm thinking my noodler. People call the brain a noodle and that sort of thing, or you think of noodling like noodling around, like fidgeting. But can you explain the whole idea behind noodling and catfish?
Yeah, noodling or hillbilly hen fishing or catfishing. That's a real thing. It's legal in one state. And it's when you go fishing without a pole and you dangle your own hand as bait, you get a nibble and you shove your whole hand and then arm inside the entire body of a fish and yank it out. I've never done this. Okay. But I started off my career as a character called Hillbill, and I made a joke in one routine that I was the mind noodler. And then I wanted to stop playing. I mean, we'll all play a character, so I still play a character, but I want to stop doing the false bio thing. And so I want to change my name, and I like Matt the Mind Noodler more than Hillbill, the Psychic Hillbilly. I also want to break away. Yeah, I want to get away from just doing mentalism or making fun of mentalism, and I wanted to actually perform magic with mentalism, and I realized that 90% of a regular audience doesn't care about that distinction at all. And so I just thought changing my name to Matt the Mind Noodler made more sense to be able to do a lot more things that I authentically want to do rather than quote unquote parody magic, which I think I started as.
Like, back up 1 second. You said it's only legal in one
Oklahoma,
state.
Oklahoma, you can do it. And every other place, they don't want you shoving your arm down the esophaguses of fishes.
Oh, so it's illegal to shove your arm in a fish. See, I wouldn't have realized that was an. I think it's a weird activity, and in some cases sounds like a dangerous activity. But I didn't know it was an illegal activity.
You're right, but it actually can because basically fish do have teeth, and so if you do it wrong, you can cut your arm. And then lakes and stuff like that, like it's actually just hazardous to possibly do.
There has to be a number of ways to do that wrong.
Yeah. I'm not
So
an
much
advocate if you're
But
asking.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, sure. Who wants pasta?
I mean, I'm glad to know that you haven't actually tried that. It's just your character. Let's welcome Meadow to the after party.
Hi.
Meadow Perry, ladies and gentlemen. And a huge shout out to Meadow and a huge thank you because she was because of Meadow, we obtained these awesome guests tonight that she reached out to, which I really appreciate because as many magicians as I've gotten to know, I don't know everybody yet. So there's some amazing people that, they're not going to know who the heck's writing to them if I reach out. So I really appreciate that. And
Absolutely.
well, Carissa only knew me one way with it, which is with my wig and my swords. So.
Well, yeah. And also we've met in person.
That sounds like something you should shout as you leave the house. My wig, my sword.
Always important.
I do. I will yell that next time for sure. I actually have
deal.
I have several swords right behind me. So I'm gonna get you girls going with a question really quickly. So I'm gonna turn my camera off for a second, and actually I'll grab some swords. So can you tell us a little bit about Bubble U? What is Bubble U?
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Carissa. You're the guest.
No, I mean it is so much more yours than in his mind right now.
Yeah.
4 years ago I started lecturing on bubbles. I've been doing bubbles for like 12 years. And there were constantly I would do in-person stuff and people really wanted like more content, and I was like, well, there's no way for me to be everywhere, so what if I just hire a filmmaker, set up a studio, shoot like, I don't know, what is it, the original one was like 7 hours of stuff, codify my show, which is a very easy show to do, and release it. And that was great. But the bubble community is ravenous, as Meadow knows, and I was not anticipating the level of like hunger, and I just could not keep up with it. And I had been following Meadow forever and was like, this is clearly the person that is like most qualified in the world to run this monster that I accidentally made. And I was like, please take my baby. I can no longer handle it. It is grown beyond my comprehension. And then she took it, and now it's flourishing again because it outgrew me within 2 years, like completely outgrew me.
Yeah. And it's so funny that you say it's a monster because it really is. I often tell people when they're like, well, how did you get into bubbles? I'm like, I didn't choose bubbles. Bubbles chose me. Like literally, I started doing a bubble thing, and then I went, oh, what else can I learn? And I started learning all these other things, and it just took off. And now I'm this master at bubbles. And it's fun and it's great. But thank you for bringing me on board with Bubble U because it's been an awesome journey. And
you saved my life. You have no idea. You saved my life. There's only so much I could do before it was like, this is
Ernest,
because it was just supposed to be like beginner stuff and like my show, a few things, and when people get into bubbles, they just go insane. It's an insane people.
Yeah, I've been amazed learning about this bubble community, and that sounds like they're a little more hardcore than even magicians.
Oh my gosh,
like,
there's so much drama.
Cutthroat,
really?
Hardcore bubble people. Yeah, it's
what's the key to making a good bubble mixture?
Oh gosh,
humectant.
Vodka.
Humectant. Yeah. You have to have a good
a good humectant.
The gooey stuff. I call it like a humectant, something that keeps it from drying out too quickly. because the bubble is so.
Yeah, that's
so
what I'm taking
thin.
antibiotics to get rid
So,
of.
If you think of sugar is like gooey, right?
Yes.
It's like a glucose. Some people use beer. Weirdly, they use beer to make bubbles. There's this stuff, and it's always a little awkward whenever someone visits my house. They go in the bathroom and they see this giant bottle of powdered lubricant on my shelf. Lubricant works really well. Veterinary,
and it's
lubricant.
like industrial veterinary supply lubricant because that's the good stuff.
It's always really strange. That's for bubbles. Also, guar gum is also it's like a food additive. There's PEOs that are like scientific, things that make things thicker. Some people use cornstarch. There's so many different
glycerin.
Vegetable glycerin. Yeah, there's so many.
I'm watching Matt's improv brain about to explode because he already has like 12 lines with the lubricant, and you guys are you keep going. You passed up veterinary lubricant. You've named several, and he's just like, hold on, back up. Like I can see that.
Yeah.
Honestly, last time I tried to use a powdered lubricant, it did not go well.
Oh no.
Yeah,
but yeah, that is the secret to good bubbles. And this is the funny thing about bubble artists and bubble magicians is that every single one
sounds
of them
like
has a different recipe.
It sounds like if I try to order these ingredients, I'm going to get on the government watch list. Is that true?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They almost didn't give me my O1 because of this. This is the problem. They were like, this Canadian is clearly not. We don't want this kind of human.
How much guar gum have you ordered in the last month?
It's funny because they test when you go to the airport and they do the strips on your hands. Have they ever done
glycerin.
that to you? They test for glycerin.
Yeah.
But glycerin is different than nitroglycerin, which I learned recently.
Oh, shoot. I better start my bubbles over then.
Right. It's not as dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one is some kind of humectant, and the second one is pH. So the water has to be at the appropriate pH level to like support the bubble. So a lot of people add baking soda or use distilled water or, are really careful with impurities and bubble solution goes bad. And some people ferment their bubble solution because over time the pH sort of settles itself out. A lot of people test their solution with pH balancing strips. So those are like the two elements. Everything you see going into bubble solution is either trying to make it not dry out, humectant of some kind, or trying to make sure that the pH is correct.
Makes a great steak marinade too. I have a Ninja fryer and I marinate my steaks in bubble fluid.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Nothing like the taste of soap. I mean, if you really like the taste of soap, just use cilantro. It's what everybody else does.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to tell people they want to make plans later, and I go, I can't. I got to make bubbles.
Oh, how long does it take? How long does it take to make bubbles?
It takes me like a good 20 minutes to make a batch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like
and then it has to sit.
Yeah, it has to sit. It has to brew. I call it brewing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, guys are into like slow cooking stuff with like wood pellet smokers. We can certainly have the patience to make a good bubble batch, right?
Yeah.
So I just did bubbles in the Magical Cirque tour for the first half of the tour, and we ended up switching out for another routine because it made more sense and like it was making the stage slick, and so there's just lots of reasons. And we went through a lot of solution, and so I would finish the act, and during the show, I would make a new batch so I wouldn't forget. So it was, that looks good.
Ooh.
Speaking of a good batch, I would make a new batch of solution so that I would have the whole day to the next day to brew. And twice, because it was a Christmas show, I'm so glad we cut it and put something else in, the solution froze.
Oh no.
Oh no.
And it makes it it ruins it. It ruins it. It can come back to life, but you got to let it sit for like another 48 hours and it's still not quite right. But so it froze. And so, we tried to do a show and I didn't know it froze until I was playing with it right before the show to like get my skills back up. And it was just like, nothing would work. And that's the crazy thing about bubbles is so much of it is just this intuitive understanding. If you look at it and the rainbow's not quite right, and that tells you something, or the viscosity's not quite right, or it's a little heavy, or it's, immediately popping. And you're like, okay, well, if it's immediately popping, either I've got some kind of particulate in the air, or there's like some air current I'm not aware of, or it froze when I wasn't looking. And we're putting this stuff on a truck and shipping it from city to city, so it's got frozen. So I started like packing it in all these towels to keep it warm, and
Mhm.
It was a nightmare, you guys. I'm so
That
glad
was-
it got cut.
One of my very first magic conventions that I did was East Coast Spirit Sessions, which they just did just this past weekend. But I did it for the first time in 2019, and I flew down, and so I had another magician who was from around this area was driving down, so he took my bubbles down with him, and he had a sub trunk on the back of his vehicle and put it in there, and they got cold. They got to like 40 degrees, and I had the same issue. I was trying to do bubble wall, and it wasn't working. I'm traumatized from that moment. So now I always tell people, treat your bubbles like your baby. Like they don't get them too cold, don't get them too hot, don't leave them in your car. Like,
And don't shake them up. We
Don't
on
shake
the
'em
show last time, Lindsay knew I was on the show and talked about on Penn and Teller that she had to get Teller to blow the bubble 7 times because she tried to shake all her jitters out backstage and actually shook up her bubble solution, and so now it's like carbonated.
Yeah. So
Also, Teller's a curse to anyone's props on Fullest. So that's also
Yeah.
I believe it.
Oh, by the way, your volunteer was perfect, Matt. I just
I
thought
know.
she was hilarious. She just looked so fish out of water and just ideal for that situation. I just thought she was just such a perfect
She's a
choice.
professional golfer. And
What?
So, like, yeah, that's what
That's
I
a
found
thing?
out. Yeah. yes.
That's
Let's
cool.
start there. There are people who play golf professionally.
I
And
thought
then,
what we did was cool.
So I literally was like, "Oh, she'll be super calm under pressure," and that was not the case at all. But no, she was a blast. She loved it. She had like her family come back the next day. She had a big viewing party. It was so sweet. She was so nice. She was awesome.
I guess it's okay to ask you. I was a little distracted during the actual routine, and I was more, into the comedy than the method. But were you using something to do with toxic at all during that?
If you pause Penn's notebook, I don't
Oh,
know if I laughed,
no,
people
really?
on YouTube are like, "What's the method?" Blah, 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 blah. Which I was like, "It's not that complicated of a trick." But you can read it right on Penn's notebook. It says "toxic huge" when he's talking to me and gesturing. You just see.
Really? Oh, that's hilarious.
So when people kind of go like, "What's it like to get a signal from Penn or whatever?" It's like, "Oh, you mean when he writes it and shows it to you while he's talking?"
That's great.
wow.
So yes, it's a very typical use of it. And honestly, they cut things that make the TV show better. So obviously, I had the phone in my hand longer than what appeared on TV. So for magicians, it's unfair because I don't have like the world's fastest toxic installing phone in the world. But I feel but so that part, sometimes makes magicians agitated.
Yeah, well, they cut away, but I mean, come on, it's just,
there's only so much time.
That's magic on TV, and the fact is that we know that that's not the best way for it to be presented anyway. So my deal is, why not make it look as good as possible? Because that's not the preferred medium to begin with. You're supposed to see this stuff live. You're supposed to experience it. You're not really supposed to look at it 2-dimensionally. So why would you expect everything to be all fair and clear anyway?
No, Chris, actually, over the pandemic, you took this crash course in like camera work and all this other stuff, and like you had to finally like embrace both sides of the equation as a stage magician and someone producing something for the screen, and you ran into all kinds of stuff thinking about those things. Right?
It was such an education. In fact, like I think it was really helpful because I feel like when I did Fool Us, I'm not happy with my Fool Us performance at all. I don't like it. I'm very upset by it. It's terrible in my opinion because I didn't know. First of all, I got like a week's notice to go out. I think I still would have done a terrible job. I don't think it would have made any difference because all of the things I did wrong were things I didn't understand about the way film and television worked because I've always been a stage actor. Watching it, I was like, I am not connecting with the camera. I like immediately 2 seconds in, I'm like, there are 9 things wrong with this that if I was going to do it again, I would fix. And those are things I really got the bugs worked out of doing the online show. And I actually kind of disagree with you, Michael. I think like magic can be really great on television. It's just you have to know that's what you're making. Like there was so much stuff.
Sure.
I mean, Meadow mentioned it in the live stream. There was so much stuff that we created for the online show that could only exist in that environment. And that was our priority, was what kind of magic can we create that prioritizes this medium, that makes it feel remarkable in this medium, that is shocking and fooling and amazing in this medium. And the unfortunate thing is, like, I spent a year and a half working on stuff I can't take with me on the road because it only works in this environment. But what it did teach me is I've been doing tons of media for Magical Circuit. We're doing all these like little TV things, and I feel so much more confident in front of a camera, so much more comfortable.
Do you end up doing a lot of magic for press?
Yeah, a lot of magic for press. Oh yeah, we do tons of shows.
What's your go-to?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have for Magical Cirque, I do the earring trick, but with snowflake earrings, because then it's like,
oh my gosh, I love that.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
And Biz helped
Wait,
me
I don't know.
build-
I don't know the earring trick.
You
Wait,
don't
what's
know the
that?
earring trick? Oh
Do
my
you have to
God.
wear
I,
earrings to do it?
I have to wear, yeah, right. So I remove an earring, and I can
Oh.
like make it vanish in a bunch of different ways, and then it appears back on my ear.
Oh, that's cool. I've never
great.
seen that.
Yeah, it's great. It's in my master class, I think.
Y'all are talking about it like it's this normal thing. Like I should have
I-
known about this.
I saw
Yeah.
you teach it at NimCon.
We're fans of Carissa. We watch her stuff. We love
Yes,
it.
There you go.
we are. I saw you teach it at NimCon right before in the before times. And I thought it was so genius because there was like 2 women in the crowd. So it was
Yep.
so great. You're teaching this room full of magicians. And like
Brilliant.
only
And
a handful
my
of us.
line to justify it was also my favorite thing, was because I was like, yeah, so I have some variations in case you're a kind of person that doesn't wear earrings. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, mostly women wear earrings, I'm a dude, I can never do this. Well, now you know how we feel literally all the time.
Right.
And they all went, and they were all like, yeah.
Let me
And the
do
2
this
ladies
with
were like,
magic.
Pockets. Because pockets.
well, and
So
suit
great.
jackets and vests and
Yes.
watches and wallets, and it's not pockets. It's that we work in an art form where literally everything is object based, and it's entirely predicated on the idea that the object has to feel commonplace. And what feels commonplace in the hands of a feminine person and what feels commonplace in the hands of a masculine person are different objects. So it is very common for me to open a book and be like, well, that would be really great if I wore a suit jacket. That would be really great if it looked like a top hat would not be such a weird thing on my body, or a pocket watch or a wristwatch, right? Like there's thousands of objects that you
Or
run
if I
into.
carried a sword on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the one I used to imitate or do the lookalike for you. And then, but I just picked these up off the ground. I just moved, so I've got a lot of stuff laying around. This is an actual, authentic, like British sword.
Ooh, pretty.
Yeah, this is the only real. The other ones are all like decorative. This is an actual, like, what do you call it?
Yeah,
Cavalier?
that's like a real one that you use when you fight dragons.
Don't cut your head off.
Well, this would be more like for dragon. This is like I got this at a ramp. Oh, it's still peace tide from the Renaissance
That
Festival.
looks like the sword made for the man with 6 fingers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it does, huh? You kill my father, prepare to die. And then this is from Lord. This is the Lord of the Rings sword of Aragorn.
I
Nice.
feel like I should grab a
Yep.
sword. Hold on.
Ah.
Sword.
Well, they were all laying right here, and we were talking about the swords and wigs. The wigs, I think the wigs are still in the garage, but I have my swords.
Yeah. Okay. So,
got
media calls. I also do finger chopper. I love finger chopper for a media call.
Ooh.
I love a pickpocket routine or a pseudo pickpocket routine for a media call. Mwah, mwah, love it. Chop cup. Chop cup's great for a media call because it's got to be stuff that it doesn't matter where you shoot it from, right? Because you never know when they're going to go to a reverse angle and just screw you. So I have this rule that anything I do for media, there cannot be a single bad angle. And I have a new method with the earring where like there is no bad angle. You could stand up my nose and you're not going to see the method, which is really nice. Yeah, this is the method. Actually, I have it here. This is the new thing. Looking at this explains nothing, and yet this is the new method. I'm really excited. We got to build a new one. It's 3D printed, so it's kind of problematic. But this is like the earring releaser, the new one.
That's so cool.
You kind of froze for a little bit, but that's okay though, because I guess it went with the reveal of like, here's it, what? So we could hear you, but we couldn't quite see it, but that's okay.
It's anticipatory.
It revealed nothing to me because,
It's the
like I said, I don't know.
misdirection of the
I don't know the effect.
anticipation.
I mean, it doesn't look like anything, right? It's basically like
No.
a box with like a weird release mechanism in it. If you don't,
Yeah.
it's mostly duct tape because.
Do you know that I wish I had my finger choppers usually close by and all of my stuff scattered? But do you know the wooden one? I wish I had that one to show you. It's so clever.
Which wooden one? Because there's a couple wooden ones. The one with the wooden piece in the middle, where the circle is the full wooden piece in the middle. So there's the Mickey Hades finger chopper, which is wood with the metal blade, and then there's the one that opens sideways where the whole object is wood.
Yes, that's the one I have. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've never seen that one.
You just described it. What do you
I
mean?
know that's the gag. That's the joke.
Oh, I was like, wait, what? No, I've never seen it. Oh, that's great. Oh shoot, because I had it nearby, but I'm still
They're both
getting
great
my house
tricks, and
together.
I usually that's my like go-to also CEO interaction because it's got like great stakes. But when you do with like a television personality, they're always like they have that TV like this thing, right? But if you can convince them they're in just a tiny bit of peril, then some of that falls away and you get to have like a real human interaction with this person. And it's such a nice opportunity for the audience. And like, you really get in there and they're like, it's like a one bead of sweat. It's one of my favorite things. I just did
like news people are very accustomed to filling in all dead air spaces. And so like,
they
like
talk over you.
spots, and then you're like, oh no, I need a tension spot here, but they won't give it to me.
It's so true. It's so true. One of the ways I find to get them quiet is to like open your mouth like you're about to say something, and they'll be quiet because they're also trained to try not to talk over you. And if they've talked over you once, they'll be extra sensitive to it. So I'll just, especially with the finger chopper, because you need them to be quiet. So I'll be like, and they're like. And you get that nice moment of quiet because they're just like, do it. It's so fun. It's a game of chicken. I did a ton of like media stuff for this, and I've learned so much doing the online show. It's so funny because I did Fool Us and then immediately went into quarantine. So it was the thing I sat with the first 3 months of quarantine of like, man, I am bad on camera. I gotta fix that.
That's tough. And I mean, you're hard on yourself, but I get what you're saying, and I like the things that you've learned are valid and great.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I just did Shot Masters like not too long ago, and I'm excited for that stuff to come out because I'm like, did I actually learn? I think I learned, but we're about to find out if maybe I need to go to LA and do some kind of crash course for a few months.
I'm excited for Masters to come out.
Yes. Do you know when they're doing the new season?
The new season, the first episode airs on February 11th. So, but I don't. I know I have no idea what episode I'm going to be on, but it'll be my debut. I'm very excited. I don't know if I'm going to be good or not, but
I'm just going to make a quick note to myself to message them because I have not heard from them.
Yeah.
And Matt, when would be the deadline to get something in for the next or is there going to be the next season of? We're
not officially renewed yet.
Okay.
We're optimistic. I mean, I guess full shop talk. The CW was purchased, so people we've never met before have to be the ones that renew.
Oh.
But it is still their highest rated reality property, and it is also their most profitable show. So we're optimistic.
Because I didn't make the dead. I submitted a video, but it was too late. I waited too long and missed the deadline last time. So I'm like hoping to get something in there. But I'm such a procrastinator,
Yeah, I mean, it's. What's great about the show is the show wants to showcase 60 magicians a year, and that's just great to get that kind of magicians on television and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So, that part they do a great job, and they really do want the show to be as great as possible. But I believe they'll keep making more of them, and so you'll have an opportunity to do so, or something else will fill that vacuum. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I hope it's the show that pays me if I'm allowed to
Right.
be on it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's so fun, and I think they've done a good job of making it entertaining because they are such big personalities, and they have
show's
such great
changed.
writing staff.
no, but the show has changed. The show has gotten looser in a good way, I think, over the years.
Mm.
I think it used to
I
take
agree
itself
with that.
very seriously as a game show, and now I'm the one who brings up the game show element sometimes, and they look at me like I have 3 heads, and I'm like, I thought we were supposed to look out for that. Never mind. Whatever. Or I say like Penn and Teller, like, don't you hate when the magician does that? Well, they're like, oh, I forgot that we said that. Like they even forget their on the show.
That's amazing.
So it's the truth of the matter is that they just want each episode to be as kick-ass as possible, and the winning and losing element is not something that anyone's actually all that concerned with.
I
Right.
love that Penn and Teller, Fool Us, puts the emphasis on like making magicians look good. Like they take very, very good care.
Yeah, we don't do any of that AGT. Like, here comes this stinker.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they
Even though they should have to me. But yeah,
That's what won me over and made me respect the show when I realized that I went as an advisor for Ed Ripley when he was on, and when I was backstage, I got to see how serious they were taking it, how they not only protect the art of magic, but they uplift the art of magic. And it was such a different experience than when I was trying to get on AGT long ago and had an entirely different experience there. And I realized these people just want to make us look like fools.
it's so scary that you might be the doofus on that episode of AGT. I think that's so scary.
Yeah. Although, here's what I will say is because like I've been talking, I don't want to probably ever do it, but I've been talking to them and I came in with the stats, right? Because I was like, then they can't argue with me. And I was like, hey, listen, do you know that more ventriloquists have won than all women? Like, do you know that's your stats? And they were like, yeah, we know, we're doing our best. And I was like, okay. And then I brought up like 3 more things where I was like, do you know this is a problem and this is a problem? And they were like, we know, we're sorry. We're trying.
Yeah.
I had a recent conversation as well, and I was like, I don't want to do any heartstring. I don't like soap opera.
Yeah.
And he goes, I can give you. Everyone thinks that, and I can give you 100 examples of people who did very well without any soap opera element. So whatever you think you know, I can tell you what I know, and I'll win. And I said, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna do this whole I have ADHD and have the sad music come in and see if I can
Send them over.
and the whole video starts moving slow, turns black and white as I talk about my struggle.
And the camera, they could like purposely pause to make it look like you almost are going to get distracted and not finish your routine, but then you do finish your routine.
Amazing.
Try the music players.
Yeah. Early when I was doing bubbles early on, I had someone from AGT reach out to me, and they wanted to like curate and change everything about what my act was, and I was like, I don't want to present myself that way. Like that's not me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I straight up just no negotiations, just straight up failed to get on that show 3 times. So I'll just be candid about that. But they keep calling. So who knows?
Wow.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that they have a lot. Like it is Fool Us times 10. Like for whatever position that you have at Fool Us, people in that position, it's like it's constantly just everyone trying to find a way to get different people on there, and no one knows the biggest lie is that they have formulas that they stick to, and that's not true at all. It is they're always playing alchemy with each season.
Yeah.
My team and I have decided like we have a rule. We have like 6 rules of like things we won't accept. And every year they call and they're like, rules the same? We're like, yep. And they're like, okay, well, we'll budge on these 3. And we're like, nope, 6. And they're like, okay, we'll call you next year. We'll budge on 4. And it's literally every year. Like a new person calls. And like, I swear to God, they like look up my file and they're like, oh, she was mad about these things. Why don't we try and give her these things and see? And so yeah, it's always like a little more, but it's still always like, I'm just not comfortable. It's such a scary thing to do. It's such a risk.
Yeah.
They wanted me to be a stripper. I was gonna have to do my first round as a stripper. So
No.
That makes sense.
Well, you're from
With that hair,
New Orleans.
absolutely.
You did win the Greasy Know the Polls.
But it's because you submitted Michael Lamar's headshot. That's why.
That's what it was, yeah.
That's the joke. Okay, team. I was supposed to leave 15 minutes ago. In
Oh
minutes.
no!
I know. I absolutely have to go. I am
Well,
so
thanks for hanging
sorry.
out with us. This was great. This
No
was so
problem.
So nice
Yeah.
to get to catch
Yeah,
up.
we'll probably need to wrap it anyway. Because you've been on the show now, you have an all access pass to come back for the after hours. So I'll send you messages to remind you when we're doing the show. And I think now I upgraded the plan so I can bring like maybe eight people on it at once or whatever. But anyway, whenever I have past guests that would like to come back, talk about what they're doing, interact with some of the current guests, I'd love that. This is one of my favorite parts of it. So welcome anytime, and thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. Yeah, I wish we could keep it going for hours. Yeah, it's incredible. So I'll let you guys get rolling. I'm gonna end the broadcast. It's probably a good time for it. Thank you, Matt. And those of you watching, make sure to check out the links that we put in the chat there. Show support. Keep up with everything that they're doing. These artists are extremely talented and just wonderful people to know. So hope to see you guys in person soon. That would be amazing.
Let's do it.
And yeah.
Well, I'll see you
guys.
most of the people at Magi Fest, maybe, huh? Magi Fest?
Nice. Yeah.
Anybody?
Where is that?
When is Magic?
Columbus, Ohio, in like 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Oh, I sadly, but have fun.
That's a fun one. I've done that one. It's such a fun one.
How about
Yeah,
the Magic Castle
absolutely.
in March? Are you back in LA? Where are you now?
January, February, March. Yes. Yeah. I'll see you. What week are you doing?
Hold on, let me check.
I'm doing the second week in February. If anybody wants to come out to the castle.
I can tell you, I have your site pulled up. It was on there.
Good.
Oh yeah.
He is
I
there.
forgot. I added all my
March
dates to my
6th through
schedule.
12th. March 6th through 12th, right?
Yes,
Magic
March
Castle.
6th through 12th is correct.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I am there February 6th to 12th.
All right.
Awesome.
Then that means on
Oh, cool.
last week of February we meet in the middle.
All right. Yeah. I need. I wanted them to have like a week to clear out the the expectations. To the
Yeah, sure. I definitely need as much distance from you as possible before performing. That's for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Beautiful.
Bye,
We'll catch you
Carisa.
there. See you guys soon. Thanks, guys.